Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. In today's podcast episode, I'm excited to be talking to Kasey Edwards. Now, Kasey Edwards is the author of Raising Girls Who Like Themselves, and this is such a great conversation. So Kasey and her husband, Dr. Christopher Scanlon, together wrote this book. They are both researchers and writers, and they've spent the last 10 years researching and developing a comprehensive parenting approach to raising girls who like themselves. I actually didn't realize how big of a deal Kasey is until after the interview that I had with her, and I was looking at her website and saw she's been on The Project and she's been on the Today Show. So that's really exciting to get her on the podcast. And in this episode, we talk about her book, Raising Girls Who Like Themselves, and we talk about the 7 pillars that she goes through in more depth, obviously, in her book. But we go through those 7 pillars, and she talks a little bit about each pillar and gives us some really good practical and easy to implement strategies that we can start using to help us raise girls who like themselves in a world where, this is really difficult. So I'm excited to share this conversation with Kasey with you guys. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Natural Super Kids podcast. Today, I have Kasey Edwards on for a chat. Welcome, Kasey.
Thank you, Jess. It's so great to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to chat to you, both for our audience and for my own personal reasons. As I was just sharing, I have a 12-year-old daughter, so this is a very timely topic for me. Can you start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself and I guess what you do and how you came to be doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. So I am a researcher and a writer, and I've basically been writing and researching topics that have interested me as I've gone through life. And then I got pregnant with my first daughter, Violet. So that was 12 years ago. And my husband is Dr. Christopher Scanlon, is also a researcher and writer. He's at Deakin University. And together we realized that we had no idea how to raise this gorgeous little baby that was growing. And we felt really unprepared for that. So we decided to do what we do as researchers. We decided to find answers. But my deep personal motivation for writing a book called Raising Girls Who Like Themselves was that I grew up not liking myself very much. So I had all these external measures of success. You would look at me and you would think that I would like myself, but I didn't. I really went through life feeling like I wasn't good enough. It didn't matter what I did. I was never good enough. And as I got older and started interviewing more people for my work, I realized that a lot of women felt like that, and that this wasn't just me. And what occurred to me was if I raised Violet the way I was raised, most likely she would turn out the same way, and she would carry this burden of lack of self-belief and self-doubt for longer than she needed to. I got rid of that burden when I was 40, when I researched Raising Girls Who Like Themselves. In a way, I reparented myself, but I wanted to get it right for Violet, and I wanted to find out what exactly I needed to do for her to grow up liking herself.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely resonate with that, myself. And if we can instill that in our daughters at an earlier age, I just think that that's so important. So tell us more about your new book, Raising Girls Who Like Themselves. I love that title.
Thank you. Because isn't that what we hope and dream for all our girls? And the thing that became really clear was if your daughter likes herself, absolutely everything becomes easier. Anything that you hope and dream for your daughter is easier if she likes herself. If you want her to be successful, she will strive for success, not because you're pushing her, but because she will have faith in her ability to achieve it. If you want your daughter to be kind and considerate, if she likes herself, she will be, because she won't need to tear other people down to feel good about herself. And if you want her to have good relationships, well, if she likes herself, she will know that she deserves nothing less. So she will choose healthy relationships, and she'll look after her physical and mental health, because it's natural to look after what you love. So, and also our job as parents just becomes so much easier too, if that's our starting point. But what Chris and I identified was that there's 7 pillars that every girl and every boy, and indeed every person, needs if they're going to grow up liking themselves. And the problem with these pillars is that very often they don't develop naturally. And in today's society, there's actually a lot of forces going on that are going to try and rob our girls, chip away at the pillars that they need. So what the focus of our book was to work out exactly what we needed to do to build these pillars. Now, Chris and I, we are busy parents. We both work. Our family's just as complicated as everyone else's. And we've only put things in our book that we have done in our own family. So these are strategies that you can actually implement, not the ones that are really good in theory and then just make you feel guilty because you can't actually do it.
Yes, so many of those things in the parenting world, isn't there?
Yes. So would you like me to go through what these 7 pillars are?
Definitely. And I was just going to say that is very much in line with what we're all about at Natural Super Kids, is about those, because kids' health is what we focus on, and kids' nutrition. And these are really overwhelming topics. And a lot of the information that gets shared, it's just impossible to implement that in the modern world. So I love that you've brought that up, and it sounds like we're very much in alignment. So yeah, I would love to go over these 7 pillars, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Settle in and let's go.
Let's go for it.
Pillar number 1 is what we call a power perspective. And this is a way of teaching your daughter to think about the world in a way that works for her rather than against her. And the thing about a perspective is that you can choose it. Anybody can choose to change their perspective. And I'll just give you one example of how we can use a power perspective. So, for example, my daughter, I now have 2 daughters. I've got Violet and Ivy. And it was Violet's birthday party, and she brought all her presents home, and she was unwrapping her presents. And Ivy, her little sister, decided to help and broke one of the presents. So Violet obviously got upset in that moment, and we sympathized with her because, you need to recognize valid emotions. That's part of liking yourself too, not always having to be the good girl and pretend everything's okay. But then we said to Violet, we can't fix this broken present. It's broken. But what you have the power to do is to choose how you're going to think about it. You can focus on this broken present and you can be upset for the rest of the day. Or you can focus on all the good things that happened today, your party or your other presents, all the people, friends and family who love you, and you can have a good rest of the day. You have the power to decide that. And so that's just one simple example of training our girls to choose to feel better about themselves. And the lesson in this is that kids and a lot of adults think that feelings just happen, that, bam, this triggering event and you feel bad, but there's a thought in between. And we get to choose that. We get to choose whether or not we're going to focus on that thought that pops into our head or choose a different one. And in that moment, Violet chose a more empowering thought and she felt better for the rest of the day.
That's such a powerful lesson to teach, isn't it? And it reminds me, I'm a yogi. I love yoga. And last week in yoga, we always have this lesson. And our yoga teacher was talking about we are the vast ocean, and our thoughts are like the waves that kind of move, and we can let them go. And the other example was we are the vast sky, and our thoughts and feelings are like the clouds that move through. And I've been talking to my daughter about this. So it's like, we can choose which ones we grab onto, which ones we let go past. So that's kind of just a different way of thinking about it as well.
That's right. And it's a skill. So
yes.
The more you practice it, the easier it's going to be. And the sooner your children start learning it, the more it becomes their default way of looking at the world.
And it empowers them. You know, they don't have to feel this way. There is that thought in between that that they get to choose. So I love that. All right, what's number 2?
Well, just one more thing on the power perspective before I go on is the idea that they get to decide if they are okay. And this is a really big thing for girls. We, in many ways, teach our girls that other people decide if they're okay. Other people judge their appearance, they judge the quality of their work. You know, the friend at school who makes a comment about their drink bottle gets to decide if their drink bottle's okay. And so we know that by the time girls get to 10, they are very sensitive to what other people think about themselves. But in many ways, we have trained them for this moment. And it's really important to teach girls that they are the ones who decide if they're okay. That is their superpower and they shouldn't give it away. And just one little tip that you can do to help instill this idea in your daughter is praise. When she comes to you looking for praise, do you like my dress? Do you like my somersault? Do you like my drawing? Stop, be interested and say, what do you think about it? It's your work. Your opinion matters the most. So what do you think about it?
Wow,
and that's just
powerful.
And think about how many times a day or in a year that your daughter comes seeking for praise. That's hundreds of times that you can reinforce to her that she gets to decide if she is okay. And it also takes us no time at all because we're going to do it anyway. So that's what we want. It's a tiny tweak to build a power perspective.
Yes, I love that. That's a big one for me. I'm going to definitely try that one on rather than, yeah, you look great, or yeah, that was a great somersault, or wow, what an amazing whatever it is. Like, yeah, let them kind of validate that for themselves.
That's right, because at the moment, our voice, you know, when they come to us to find out if they're okay, we love them. We've got their best interests at heart. But in time, they're going to go to people who don't. And so we need to train them to listen to themselves rather than to let other people decide whether or not they're going to have a good day.
That goes for the positive feedback as well, doesn't it? Like, yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
All right. So that's number 1. Number 2 is body confidence. And this is a big one and it's very controversial. And what we found in our research was that a lot of the advice that parents are given to build their daughter's body confidence is not only wrong, it's actually part of the problem. And what I mean by that is that parents are told that if they tell their daughter over and over again that she's beautiful, then one day she'll magically believe it and she'll have a positive body image and body confidence. Now, to the people listening, I'd just like to say, how did that work out for you? You know, we have been told our lives that we're beautiful. Our friends tell us, Dove tells us, our parents probably did too. But many women of our generation do not have a good body image. And the reason is that beauty in today's society is an unattainable goal for everybody. Nobody is beautiful enough in today's society. So every girl, including your daughter, is going to fail at that at some point. But when we talk about our daughter to her over and over again about her beauty, when we constantly talk about her appearance, we are telling her that it is really important. And she will naturally assume that her appearance is the most important thing about her. And then she's going to go out into the world and she's going to fail at the very thing that she thinks is valuable about her. So the only way to win at the beauty game is to not play it. And what I mean by that is we need to help our daughters build their identity on a firmer foundation than other people's perceptions of their beauty. Because beauty is an external measure. You know, someone else decides if you're beautiful. You don't decide that yourself. And so they can just as easily take it away from you. So any person who has built their identity on being beautiful is by definition insecure, because at any moment they can be stripped of their self-worth.
Yeah.
So we need
aging's a perfect example of that, isn't it? You know, the
absolutely
beautiful actresses and supermodels, as soon as they're over 40 or maybe it's even 30 these days, they're not classed as beautiful by the worldly standards anymore, are they?
Yeah. And, I'm sure I'm not the only one who had trouble with what motherhood did to my body. Like, oh, lucky I'm good at other things,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I love that. And I totally agree with that. So less focus on appearance, or no focus on appearance, and more focus on, the other traits, I guess.
Things that your daughter can replicate and control. So her personal characteristics, her bravery, her kindness, her humor, her persistence. Those are the things that she can be at any moment, and someone else can't take that away from her. And so, look, we just want to decrease the importance of beauty in her life. And I'll give you an example. For example, she may grow up wanting, longer legs. Now, if her identity is built on her beauty, she's going to feel bad about herself because she's got short legs. I'm ugly. I don't want to go out tonight. I look, frumpy in this. And, it will affect her life. But if her identity is built on other things, she's going, yeah, I wish I had longer legs. Oh, well, let's go. And she'll go and live her life. It won't be something that defines her.
Mm-hmm. And I resonate with that so much. Like you said, a lot of these things you haven't learned until your 40s. Like, yeah, that I think is a classic one, that I think we become more comfortable with our appearance as we get older. Well, some of us do. And we know that it doesn't matter. But if we can instill this in girls younger, then that's so powerful.
Yeah, because our generation, we have suffered so much with poor body image. Like, imagine what a gift it would be if we could spare our daughters from suffering the self-doubt and the self-loathing that we did.
Yeah. And our girls these days have so many more, there's the social media influences that we didn't even have. So there's even more pressure, I would say.
That's right. So we cannot protect our daughters from a world that's going to tell them they're not beautiful enough. Like, that's going to happen. The storm is coming. What we need to do is make sure her foundation is strong enough to withstand it.
Yes, I love that. Okay, let's move on to number 3. We could spend an hour talking about each of these points. But
yes, there's a lot to delve into, but I understand. Busy mums, let's keep it going. All right.
Yes.
The next one is a girl who likes herself owns her body. Now, this is more controversial than it sounds. So it seems like a no-brainer that, of course, a girl should own her body. But there are many different ways that we actually tell girls that they don't. And so just an example of that is the way we can tell a girl what she can and can't wear. She doesn't own her body, we do. When we tell her what she can and can't do with her hair. And here's the really controversial one. When we force our girls to give affection that they don't want to give. And that's the important part of this sentence, that they don't want to give. So I've been criticized heavily for this, and I've been on the front page of, the Daily Mail in the UK being called the kissing police, saying that I'm anti-kissing, and I'm not. So my girls are very affectionate, and I love that when they choose to give it. But if my girls don't want to give affection, then I support them. And even when it's uncomfortable, and, I'll suggest, how about a high five? Or I've actually talked to members of our family saying, actually, our girls get to decide if they want to give a kiss or a hug. So, can you ask them first, please? Because the thing that the research tells us is teenage girls are grossly underprepared for enforcing their own boundaries. Even when it comes to sending selfies, 92% of girls who send selfies don't want to do it, but they feel like they have no choice. And the reason they feel like that is because they've never been given an opportunity to practice their body autonomy in a safe space at home. Their whole life, they've been told that making other people feel more comfortable is more important than what they want to do with their body.
Yeah. Yeah, like go and sit on Uncle so-and-so's lap, or give Grandpa or Grandma a hug, or and it's kind of, it's hard for the older generation to grasp this, though, isn't it? And I think
it is. It's really hard. And so we talk about in our book is our girls need us to be brave, because these are hard things to do, but our girls need to do it. If we want them to believe in themselves, then they need to know that how they feel is more important than the comfort of somebody else.
Yeah, and that's what boundaries are all about, isn't it? So if they don't see us standing up and saying things and being brave, then why would they do it?
And, I felt that as a grown woman. The other day someone tried to give me a hug and I'm like, hello, COVID, but I didn't say anything. I just let it happen because I was raised like that. And I thought, my goodness, if I don't have the confidence in the moment to enforce my own boundaries, how is a 16-year-old girl going to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. And this brings up a story for me. We only had one car when we were growing up. And so we used to go and pick my dad up from work sometimes. And we used to give one of his workmates a lift home. And he was this big kind of man with a big red beard. He was kind of, quite intimidating looking. And he used to tickle us. And I remember hating it, but it was just all funny, it's just a bit of fun. But I wasn't taught that I can say no to that. And I remember being really uncomfortable in that situation. I think we've all got stories and memories like that.
Yeah, what you learned was that it's okay for someone bigger than you to overpower you. Like, what an awful lesson for a child. And this is something where dads can come in and play a really, really important role because, dads often do the rough and tumble, they do the tickling games. When their daughter says no, or stop, you stop straight away. And it will probably shock her the first time because, normally in these games, stop means keep going. But if you're a dad and you stop and you say, I'm stopping because you told me to stop, when you tell someone to stop, they have to stop. And you are teaching your daughter such an important lesson that will, could actually change her life in years to come.
Yeah, so important. Okay, thanks for sharing that one. And I think we're up to number 4.
Okay, the next one is calm. Now, a girl who likes herself is calm. Now, when I say calm, I don't mean super zen, quiet, compliant children. My girls are just as likely to use their outside voice inside than any other children. But calm, what we talk about here is creating the conditions for good mental health, for our children to learn, be creative, and to discover who they are as people. And at a very basic level, calm is your child getting enough sleep? Now, sleep is often the first casualty in an overscheduled, overachieving child because there's so much pressure on parents to cram as many activities as possible into their kid. And, sleep falls into the cracks. It needs to be the other way around, particularly if you have any concerns at all about your child's behavior, about how they're learning in class, about their emotional regulation. Look at sleep. Because think of how do you behave when you are chronically tired. Week after week after week, if you are not getting enough sleep, you cannot regulate your own emotions. And a child certainly can't. So sleep needs to be the priority of the family and schedule things out around sleep. The other thing that they need more than anything, and the research is very clear on this, is they need to play. And what I mean by play is free time that they choose, that is not adult-led, it's not measured, it's not competitive, and it doesn't have a learning outcome.
I'm huge on this.
Look, we worry about our kids growing up too quickly. One of the things that we're doing is robbing them of their childhood where they need to play. Because your child needs to be in flow, needs to be in free play every day. That is how their brain heals and gets ready for learning the next day at school. It is, if you want to optimize your child's ability to learn, it is way better that they play rather than they do a maths sheet.
Yes.
Homework.
Oh, yes. So true. And I think there's so many things that get in the way of that. Like there's the scheduling and the organized activities and us trying to give our kids all the opportunities to find their, brilliance in sport or whatever it is, extracurricular activities. But it's also, the screens, the technology I don't know about you, but I don't class that as play.
Well, look, this is where Chris and I are a bit controversial. Depending on what's happening on the screen, it can be play.
Okay.
So, for example, our girls play Roblox. Now, if anyone is worried about the safety of Roblox, I can give you a link to a parent guide to make Roblox safe, because you can change the settings to make it safer. And so our girls, they'll play Roblox and they will have their friends on FaceTime. And there is a whole imagination world going. They're being creative. They're learning to negotiate. That's play. They are in flow and they are playing.
Yes. Yeah. So it depends what they're doing on the screens, like not that mindless kind of, scrolling or watching. Yeah, I definitely agree. And my kids, so I've got a 14-year-old son and a just 12-year-old daughter. And one of the few things they will do together is play Minecraft together. And that is, I definitely agree. Like that is, they're being creative. They're, like they're talking to each other, they're communicating, they're interacting. But it's when they're sitting, and mine do it, they're sitting on whatever YouTube Shorts is the latest thing, and they're just sort of mindlessly scrolling through. So that's a good point that you bring up.
Yes, and look, the reason we talk about it in our book is because that is one of the reasons parents are overscheduling. They're so scared of their kids being on screens, which is fair enough because there's so many horror stories about it. They're overscheduling their kids. But look, the evidence that screens are bad for kids, it's very, very weak. If you look at the World Health Organization's recommendations, they say they make strong recommendations based on very weak evidence, okay? So much so that in the UK, they don't have screen limits. The government doesn't make recommendations because there's not enough evidence to support it. But what we do know, there is evidence that if you're overscheduling your child, you are increasing the chances of them having anxiety, depression, and it can also affect their social and emotional relationships. So if you want to follow the evidence, it's way better that they play some Minecraft than it is for them to be overscheduled.
Okay, interesting. And I think overscheduled is different for each kid as well. Like I know my daughter doesn't cope with, like some of her friends, for example, do dance every night after school, and they kind of seem to cope well with that. Whether it's the best thing or not is a different story, but she does it twice a week, and that even seems a little bit much for her, like with the transition to high school. So I think that's important to note as well, like different kids have different kind of levels that they can kind of cope with.
For sure. And also how it fits within a family, like if you're a gymnastics family and your kid just all they want to do is gymnastics, then yeah, doing gymnastics squad might be good. But if it's putting stress on you as a parent and it's putting stress on your child because they're not getting the calm that they need, then yeah, it's worth a rethink. And one thing that we do as a family is we schedule play. So if you go to Taekwondo, you know that on Wednesday between this time and this time, your kids at Taekwondo will do that for play. Wednesday afternoon's play day. And commit to it the way you would any other activity.
Yes, I love that. And it's one thing we really talk about a lot in my membership, the Natural Super Kids Club. And so many parents are like, oh, it's okay for my kids to have free time after school. We don't have to, it's surprising how many parents think that they're doing an injustice to their kids by having that free time. And we talk about the health benefits of, outdoor play and how it can help build a healthy immune system. And it's important for gut health, and it's important for sensory regulation and stress management and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, it's really important for that, instilling that calm that you talk about as well.
Because also what else they're doing is they're working out who they are. And that's crucial for finding meaning and purpose in life. And a lot of adults get to adulthood and they don't know what their thing is because you have to look for it. And you can't look for it when you're being measured and adult-led. You have to look for it when you've got the space to just play and make mistakes and try something else. So it's such a gift to your child to allow them to play. The other thing with play is that particularly when they're playing with other children, they are learning social skills that they cannot learn in structured activities. They're learning how to resolve conflict when there isn't an adult around. They're learning how to negotiate. They're learning how to stand up for themselves. And all of those things, they are so important for success in life.
Yes, I totally agree. I love that. And the sleep, such an important part as well. Like we see lots of kids with mood, behavioral challenges, and, they can be multifaceted. There can be lots of things going on, but lack of sleep is a big driver for these things.
For sure. And the research shows that sleep patterns can be vastly improved if you make a commitment to the routine of it. So our girls, they go to bed at the same time every night. Like it's just not negotiable in our family. And we've got really good sleepers.
Yeah.
And then everything's easier.
Yeah, definitely. And my kids complain that, especially my 14-year-old, my friends don't have to go to bed till 10. I'm like, yeah, well, they're not getting enough sleep, mate. And it's still hard to get you up in the morning. when you go to bed at 9, like you're not like non-negotiable. You're not going to bed any later.
Yeah. So you think about all these parents spending all this money on enriching activities for brain development. The best thing you can do for your kids' brain development is to get them to sleep.
Gosh, so true. And I think this is such, big truth bombs for parents. Okay, what's number 5?
The next one is independence and mastery. Now, this is something that our generation, our parents got wrong. So we are the children of the self-esteem movement, and our parents and the teachers when we were at school thought that if they just told us over and over again that we were awesome, then one day we'd believe it and we'd have high self-esteem. So it's a bit like body image. How did that work out, And so what we know now is that the self-esteem movement got it around the wrong way. So you feel good about yourself, not when someone tells you that you're awesome. You feel good about yourself when you actually do something that you think is awesome. And so when you have independence and mastery, when you can do things for yourself and you can feel like you can function in the world without relying on someone else. And so one of the rules that we have in our book is we only do for our children what they cannot do for themselves. And that means things like carrying your own bag to school. Now, our kids complain about that. It's amazing how many times that came up in our research from teachers and psychologists about the importance of children carrying their own bag. Now, first of all, it is building their independence. It's building their physical strength. It's also teaching them to be responsible for their own belongings. Now, we know that one of the biggest causes of stress when kids transition from primary school to high school is that how do they manage their locker? How do they manage getting what book from this to there and into the bag and blah, blah, blah. And because in many ways, if you've been carrying your kid's bag, if you've been unpacking it and packing it, you throw them into high school and suddenly they've got to learn that for the very first time. Whereas you build this slowly.
Yes, I love that. And this is really timely for us. My daughter's just started high school this year. There's so much more expected of them. It's a huge jump from primary school to high school. And like you said, there's the locker, there's the changing classrooms, there's the what book do I need for this class? Like they have to be responsible for that. They don't have teachers, helping them with that sort of thing. And I think a lot of parents are too quick to blame teachers and schools and, that primary school didn't set them up for high school. I've heard that from teachers. It's like, maybe we need to look at ourselves and what we're doing as parents.
Yes, because another thing that is navigating space. They have to be able to get from one class to another without a teacher guiding them. Now, if your child has not practiced in a safe, incremental way of, being able to get them to the shops and back, or a friend's house or school, or, if you live in a place where they can't walk the streets, maybe just when you're in Coles, telling them to go to the food court to get something else or whatever. Like if your child's never done that, then they suddenly get to school and they've got high school and they've got that on their worry list too.
Yeah, I love that. And I've always been, even when they're quite little, and you're in the supermarket and you can say, oh, can you go and grab the milk for me? Do you remember where the milk is? And you set them off and they feel so, proud of themselves and independent.
Yeah, the sense of pride on their face, you cannot replicate it any other way other than mastery, right? You can't give them a word present to make them feel that good.
No, that's so true. And I think there's so many parents that don't give their kids enough independence because they're worried of the big wide world out there. And of course, it varies depending on where you live and that sort of thing. But I've always been fairly, relaxed in terms of, my kids riding to school or, going out exploring with their friends on the streets or whatever. Within boundaries and that sort of thing. And like you were saying before, it sets up those skills of being able to navigate where they're going, being able to navigate, conflict and problem solving, all of that.
The other thing about mastery and independence that makes it really hard for parents is that a necessary part of that is that your child's going to fail. Right. And there's a lot of pressure on parents to create the perfect childhood. Right. I feel it. We all feel it and we feel judged and we want, every experience to be wonderful and our children to be happy all the time. And so we swoop in to try and spare them from disappointment and failure. But the road to mastery is paved with failure. And so we have to allow our children to fail so they can achieve mastery, so they can have self-esteem.
That is huge. And that is very, like, that's very something that's always talked about in the business world. You know, you don't reach success in business until you've had a lot of failures along the way. It's the same with our kids. Yeah.
And so what happens is, naturally kids don't fear failure. You watch a baby walk. How many times do they fall over and they get back up? But we teach them to fear failure, and we need to be mindful of helping them unlearn that lesson, or if your children are really young, to not learn it in the first place. To talk about failure as a process of learning.
Yes, and to celebrate failure. Yeah. I love that. Thank you. All right, what's number 6?
Okay, so the next one is a girl who likes herself, has strong relationships. Now, anyone with a girl who's 10 and over knows that friendships are a huge deal in a girl's life. We also know that loneliness is as deadly as cancer, right? So we don't want our kids to be lonely. We want them to have the social skills to make friends and keep friends and be connected with the community. But there is an assumption that social skills just develop naturally in the playground. And for some kids, they do, but for others, they don't. And so this is about getting ahead of the game and teaching our children, how do you actually make a friend? How do you walk into a room and not know anyone and make a friend? We can teach them how to do that. You make eye contact, you smile, and you ask a question. You say, do you play basketball? I play basketball. I've seen my girls do this, and they're not worried when they go to a holiday program where they don't know anyone, because they know they'll just make a friend there. Like, they've got their self-esteem comes from knowing that they have the skill of making a friend. Also really important for girls is learning how to manage and deal with conflict. In our society, women are not taught how to do that. We are told to smile, minimize it, pretend nothing happened, and then when it gets too much, we go and bitch behind someone else's back, or we ghost them, right? And I learned how to deal with conflict when I was 40, and I was in a friendship skills workshop with my daughter, Violet. The workshop was run by Dana Kerford from You Are Strong, and she went through a formula of how to deal with conflict. And I went, wow, is that all it is? I could have done with that 35 years ago. So it's about explicitly teaching our girls how to deal with conflict, how to stand up for themselves so that they get bullied less, and it's less severe as well.
Yeah, and even just conflict within friendship groups. Like, my daughter at 12 is going through, she's got a great, strong group of friends, which doesn't make her that great at making new friends. We were having a conversation about this yesterday. They were going on an excursion. Her friend was having the day off, so she was freaking out about having no friends. And she hasn't really had to do that because she has got quite a big friend, a strong friendship group. But now she's at high school, she's doing electives, and she's off with different people. We were talking about some of those things. So I just wrote that down, the smile, make eye contact, and ask a question. So simple and easy for them to remember. But I was just going to say, within friendship groups, that, even if it's not sort of bullying, there's often conflict that goes on that they don't know how to deal with.
That's right. So just going back to your daughter, a good high school question is, what did you do on the weekend?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. The basketball one's more for when kids actually are more focused on what they're doing, like parallel play. And for dealing with conflict, the script is so easy. First of all, you pick the right time, not the heat of the moment, not when other people are around. So your daughter finds a time where she can talk calmly to her friend, and she says, when you do this, I feel this. And then you stop and you wait for your friend to reply. Now, there's no guarantees with conflict because the friend hasn't done friendship skills training either.
Yeah,
probably.
That's right.
But it may be that friend goes, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, I won't do that again. And then you can resolve the conflict rather than ghost the person, because it gives you self-esteem knowing that at least you tried to repair the relationship, and at least you stood up for yourself. If the friend behaves like whatever and retaliates, then your daughter says, I can see you're not ready to talk about this right now. Let me know when you are. And you leave the door open to restore the friendship when the other friend is ready.
Yeah, and I think this is a great skill for us. I mean, this sounds similar to the marriage kind of, when you're having conflict or arguments, not saying you, but when you do this, I feel this.
That's right. Because Dana Kirk said, no friendship is perfect, right? So there are going to be times when your friends upset you, and there's going to be times when you upset your friends. So if you want to keep these friends, you've got to have a way to deal with conflict in productive ways. And that tiny little script is gold.
Yes, such great practical advice there. Okay, and what's the last pillar?
Okay, so the last one is my favorite one. It's a girl who likes herself is herself. And this is about allowing your daughter to grow into the best version of the person she chooses to be, not the version of the girl that you thought you were going to get or you thought that she should be. Because if she's going to like herself, she has to choose who that self is going to be. And what we found in our research is often there is some grief in parents. It's a dirty little secret in parenting that we can grieve when we don't get the child we thought we were going to get. Maybe you thought you were going to get an athletic child and your kid is not interested or not good at sport. Maybe you thought you were going to get an academic one or an extroverted one or whatever, who has the same interests as you and you don't. That process of grief is natural and normal. Don't feel bad about it. But you need to resolve it because your child needs you to see them and love them for the person that they are in this moment. What they want is what we all want, to be good enough right now, not have to lose another 5 kilos, not have to win a race, not have to, sink that basketball.
Or get better grades or whatever it is. Yeah.
That's right. And that is a gift that costs us nothing except our emotional strength.
This is a huge one. And you can see it. I mean, I think we all probably, do this to some extent in terms of, putting our own expectations or whatever onto our kids. But you can sort of, I think everyone can think of those families they know, whether they're friends or family, that are really kind of, doing this, not allowing their kids to be exactly who they are.
Yeah, so we talk about it as stone parents and seed parents. And both of these come from places of love. But a stone parent is, they think their child's a precious piece of marble and they're chiseling off the bits that don't fit and they're chiseling off what they think is their weaknesses and they're trying to create their strengths. And it's external forces deciding who this child should be. A seed parent is trusting that your child is this beautiful, unique individual. And our job is to provide the right environment, the soil, the trellis, the water, and to trust them to grow and bloom in their own way and in their own time.
I think this is a huge one. And, that's our responsibility as parents, isn't it? To raise girls who like themselves, to, let them be themselves and nurture that.
That's right, because the world is going to tell our girls that they're not good enough and that they need to be this or they need to be that. What we have within our power to control is our home. We can make sure that our daughter, no matter what happens in the world out there, she can walk through that front door and she will be in a safe haven where she is loved and accepted for exactly who she is.
So important and so beautiful. And I think that's such a great way to end it. So thank you for taking us through those 7 pillars. And obviously there's more to it. We've just sort of scratched the surface. So I can't wait to grab a copy of your book and read it. Can you tell our listeners where they can find out more about you, get their hands on your book? And I think you've got a little free resource that you wanted to share as well.
Yes, that's right. So if you want to find out more about the book, go to raisinggirlswholikethemselves.com and you can find out about the book. You can also download the first chapter for free if that interests you. But I'm also going to give you a download of a Body Confidence Family Health Check. And what this is, it's a list of things to consider in what's happening in your home, to think about whether your home environment is helping to build your daughter's body confidence, or maybe it's chipping away at the body confidence. Because a lot of the things that we do, we're not really conscious of. We parent how our parents parented us and going back generations. So it's not a test. It's just a way to think about what's going on in your home, maybe have a conversation with your parenting partner or other adults in your daughter's life, just to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to build your daughter's body confidence. So I'll give you the link to that, Jess, if you want to put that on the show notes.
Yes, so we'll pop that link in the show notes, and we'll pop the link to your book in the show notes as well, so people can find it really easily. And I love that body confidence health check, like really just making you aware, because as you said, we've only learned from how we've been parented and how our parents have been parented. And so there's so many little tweaks I'm sure we can make to do things better. One last final question. I did want to bring this up earlier, but I forgot to bring it up. I'm assuming that this stuff is all very translatable to boys as well.
Absolutely. Yes. So the reason we wrote Raising Girls Who Like Themselves is we have girls. And there are a few things that relate specifically to girls, particularly around, the forced affection, because often boys can get away with running away from granny, but the girls can't. But absolutely, we want boys to grow up liking themselves just as much. And the 7 pillars do apply to boys. It also applies to grown adults. We've heard from many mums who have read our book and said that it has helped them reparent themselves.
Oh, that's so great. Congratulations. I mean, writing a book is huge. You've got other books as well, haven't you?
Yeah, this is my 9th.
Wow.
But yeah, well, Chris and me, we write together, but this one is very close to our heart.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. And I encourage everyone who's listening to grab a copy of Kasey's book, because I think there's something in there like for everyone that we can sort of enhance our parenting skills and awareness on this really important topic. Thanks so much, Kasey.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week.